Hello, everybody. This is Small Town Underground. Roy here. And this is the first of what we hope is going to be many in a series of interviews in a different location, more of a conversation. And today we're going to start this off with Mrs. Rita Groh. And this is the first of 3 interviews that we're doing for the contested position in the school board district that's happening here in Walker County. And our goal is to meet the candidates and get out the information and have you, the voter, decide who you want representing you in the school district. So, Rita Groh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for being our first
Happy and honored.
Here. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and how you got here to Walker County?
Sure. So, I am a Southern California native. I did my graduate work at the University of Nevada, where I got my doctorate. I spent about 12 years of my life in northern Nevada near the Lake Tahoe region, where I met and fell in love with my husband. We had our first child, was in process of graduating, and the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga offered me a job. Thankful for the husband that I have that took a chance. We moved across country to start my career. And at the time, we had a 2-year-old. We moved to Flintstone, Georgia, and have been there ever since. And my son is currently in 2nd grade. He is 7. We were very fortunate to start in Walker County schools when he was selected through the pre-K lottery. And it has been a lovely home to us. We're very thankful for it, and we love our community.
Awesome. So you're going to be running for school board. Tell the people what district and everything, what district does this cover?
Absolutely. So this is for Walker County school board seat for Post 3. Post 3 covers Chattanooga Valley as well as Flintstone area. Be mindful that is the region or the district. It is a county-wide vote. So people all throughout the county will be voting, or at least have our names on the ballot.
Okay. So what we printed out a list of pretty standard questions, and we're going to just kind of go through them a little bit and take some time. And I'll just start with the first one. So how do you feel about the public education in public schools? What's your overall view?
I am very fortunate to have that option to educate my child. We are not a family of means that can afford to send our kid to private school. And we're very fortunate for it. The concern that I have as a university professor, and this doesn't reflect anyone in Walker County specifically, is that I have too many students coming to the university that are fundamentally unprepared for college. To be honest, they're fundamentally unprepared for the world that's ahead of them. And whether that is because they're lacking in reading comprehension, reading in general, analytical skills, life skills, they're not quite ready. And we're very fortunate in Walker County, especially having some very high earning schools with regards to literacy. But overall, 3rd grade literacy, how do I say this? The measures that they take at a national level to address literacy is measured at the 3rd grade level. And Georgia is somewhere in the 60th percentile for literacy.
Right.
That is only going to snowball as a child gets older through the education system and into their adulthood, and is going to get worse.
Right.
The second concern that I have, and I think this is pretty universal for all school teachers and school administrators, I don't know how well they're supported. This is not the high-paying job for the amount of work that they do. And so they need to be supported in other ways. I'm very fortunate to have such brilliant and wonderful teachers in Walker County, especially the ones that are teaching my son. I have some friends that also teach at the middle school. But overall, I think there's always room for improvement. There's a systemic issue with regards to literacy, analytical skills, life skills in general that is somewhere that I'd like to see improvement.
Gotcha. Okay. That's very fair. We do live in an area that competitively, compared to somewhere like Atlanta or even Chattanooga, the school system is a little bit different in pay and all that. So it is, there's a lot to be said there, right? What do you consider as a role for a school board member? What's your vision of a school board member's role?
Goodness. In no particular order, this is not ranked, but if I can start with, I think first and foremost is to be the advocate for our students, for our kids. I do also believe that there is supposed to be a level of transparency and accountability. I cannot make decisions on a school board without actually representing the best interest of the students and best interest of families, as well as best interests of taxpayers. Second piece that I think would be very important is to push these overall goals to improve our education system, support our teachers and administrators, and also to be accountable to taxpayers. I think that collectively, these are the responsibilities of a board member. Of course, we can talk about the day-to-day stuff, but I think those are just the bigger picture.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us are finding out about, two different millage rates and the how the school millage rates work and what this agreement is with the state about the 60-40. And a lot of people are starting to scratch their heads because we've kind of been asleep at the wheel. So
of course,
I think the next few years are going to be, there's going to be a lot more involvement in the community. And I think that school board members are going to have to realize that we got to come together on that
as there should be. This is a community. There's more than one prong in this equation. Taxpayers, schools, school boards, and again, the state and all of this that's directing the way funding's working.
Absolutely. So if you were elected as school board, what is your vision, or what would some of your goals be to get done?
As I've kind of alluded to, I would like to see an improvement in literacy. I would also like to see an improvement in comprehension. Of course, that goes with that, writing, analytical skills, so forth. I would also like to see better support of our teachers and administrators, even if it's at the level of communication. I've talked to teachers, again, being a volunteer at my son's school, being a substitute teacher, and no one has really asked them, what can we do to support you? What do you need within your classroom? And directives come at the national level, at the state level, and are being forced to be implemented in schools without actually having teachers in that conversation. They're the ones that are doing the work.
Right.
They're the ones that we're trusting with our children. They need to be part of that conversation. And so I'd like to see more communication. I will always try to advocate for them the best that I can with regards to their teaching environment, their safety, their financial situation, resources for their classroom, and so on. The third piece that I would like to see is our holistic child. I talked about safety for teachers. I'm concerned about the safety of my son. It's a terrifying experience to hear these very real events occurring so close to home and thinking, could this happen to us? The second piece of the holistic child is we can't expect our kids to learn if they're cold and they don't have a coat, if they're hungry because they don't have a meal, if they are home or food insecure at home. And I would like to see that sort of issue addressed. This also expands to include things for schools like resource officers, school counselors to help address or mediate the emotional development of our students, to address these potential poverty-related problems, to again treat the holistic student or the holistic child. Those are three definite areas that I would like to pursue. We are not the only school district, and we are not the only one that are addressing literacy issues. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I also believe that, again, as an academic researcher, we can learn from best practices of other school districts that have had these challenges and have been able to overcome them.
Absolutely. And just a little bit of addition to that, would you be open to additional security measures, resources, given in this day and age, the threat of our school system?
Absolutely. I think that should have not, that's not even a question.
Awesome.
I had a parent actually email me. She had said that she had emailed all the candidates to talk about a policy issue she was concerned with, security. And she had mentioned things like the SOS or the crisis buttons on the ID cards for our teachers. I also address student resource officers, at least one per school, but you can imagine the high school or the middle schools, just because of the base number of population, probably need more than one.
I agree. It seems like just putting one resource officer per school, when there's so many other options, we could expand on that and plus create more paying jobs for people that are qualified for that.
I'd also like to see more patrolling, whether it's Walker County Sheriff's Office, the Sheriff Patrol, even though Chickamauga County Schools is their own kind of entity. The incorporate what's good for one is good for all. Incorporation of our trained police, sheriffs, and whatnot coming into the schools, doing their rounds, at least being a presence. But at the same token, kids are learning to develop, and if they're not being supported with their emotional growth, if they're perpetually being bullied, if they have an insecure home life, these are things that need to be addressed. The
subconscious fear of something happening. And there's even non-lethal ways that we could train teachers to handle that could actually be a deterrent to actions that would, like endanger our children.
Of course. I had a student at the university ask me what my plan was, again, at the university, if there was an active shooter. And I looked at this poor girl in the face and said, I have absolutely no idea. When I taught at the community college, I had keys to all the doors so I could lock it. The university, I don't. I have no way of barricading the doors because they open outward. Little things like that I think are meaningful improvements to the school's infrastructure could also be helpful. Some schools have been tinting the classroom windows so people can't see in, but they can still see out. That's a very meaningful, thankfully a low budget item that can easily be incorporated to improve safety.
Agreed.
But it's not a single prong approach. There's so many things that we need to address. And I still go back to the holistic student, guidance counselors to help students emotionally develop, security officers, and so on.
Okay. Now that's really good. That's obviously something that's a hot button issue right now. So in Walker County, let's cover strength. We're going to cover strengths and weaknesses. First, what do you see are the strengths in this county as you apply for this position? Absolutely.
We have one of the best teachers around. Collectively, these are people that love what they do it well, and are happy to be there. The second thing that I think is a strength is that we are a small community, but sure are a mighty community. We care for each other. This is the neat part about living in a small town or in a rural community. You know everyone around you. I know for myself that if I see my son's friend walking home, I'll call the mom and say, hey, do they need a ride? Let me get them in and go. We carpool, and my two neighbors and I, we are the mommies that take turns carpooling. These are things that I think are beneficial. Now, with regards to the school system, I think it was a wonderful initiative that the county education office applied for a grant which provided for free breakfast and lunch for all our kids. These are wonderful strengths. These are wonderful things that I hope to see will continue. I also want to just put one little pitch out there that has absolutely nothing with strengths and weaknesses. But when we're talking about security, this funds shouldn't be on the burden of taxpayers. There's federal education dollars and state education dollars that should be going to these. Again, out of place, forgive me.
I agree with you. I personally think the only problem with our federal dollars is that sometimes they come with strings attached. We should be freeing up those federal dollars so that the communities, the school boards themselves and the communities can use those for however they see fit, because like you said, it's not a one prong approach, but we should be sort of disassociating that with any kind of federal strings and letting the schools decide how they want to secure them.
Sure. I full-heartedly agree, but it shouldn't always be on the burden of taxpayers.
I do agree. Now, what do you see are some of the weaknesses of this county, Walker County?
This is a heavy thing to say, but we're dealing with a county that has to deal with poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when a child doesn't have a secure home and environment, is maybe being passed between parent to grandparent to great-grandparent,
Mm-hmm.
aunts and uncles, where they don't have home security. We would consider that almost homeless.
Right.
When they don't have a coat for the cold days, when they don't have proper shoes,
Mm-hmm.
just very basic things that unfortunately come when we're dealing with poverty.
Right.
This ends up being a weakness, and it ends up being systemic. As you can imagine, a child's not going to be able to concentrate, to learn to read, to learn to write, to
Mm-hmm.
do their mathematics if they're hungry.
Right. I do agree. That's an issue is always ongoing. It needs to be
Mm-hmm.
tackled. This is going to be an interesting one. All right. Walker County school system has lost a large number of students and parents who have opted for private schools. Should there be a strategy to reattach these students? And so we do know that legislation has been passed in order for school choice, given money for homeschooling, and that of which, because overall, I think the education system has lost a lot of trust. So that's a pretty good question. What would you think that we could do to strengthen our school system to get more people back into it?
Sure, I'm never going to fault a parent for wanting to send their child to private school. I'm never going to fault a parent for wanting to homeschool their child. That's their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it needs to be respected. However, we need to remind parents that their children's needs can be served within the public school system.
Sure, I've got 2 kids that went to public. I've got one in high school now, one in college. So we've stayed in the public school system.
The only way that we can attract families back or make it attractive for anyone is to make improvements in small, meaningful gains. A few extra percent increases in 3rd grade literacy. Mm-hmm. That's something tangible. That's something meaningful. All we can do is keep trying to make small improvements. Right. If parents are concerned about safety, we improve safety. If parents are concerned about quality of education, then we start introducing them to the curriculum. Right. The challenging part that we have, again, is some schools don't have textbooks. Mm. Some schools are stuck with teachers creating their own curriculum versus having a standardized one. Pros and cons to this, of course. Right. If we want to attract all county families to bring their students, there has to be quality education. Right. We have the makings of quality education. We have phenomenal teachers, but we need some extra resources maybe for curriculum development. We need some extra resources to adhere to the state's assessment guidelines. There needs to be, again, meaningful changes to hopefully attract them back over time. It's not going to happen overnight. Right.
Okay. This is a good one, too. How do you plan to communicate your vision and or promote your transparency as a board member? Before you answer, we were kind of talking before the interview how it's kind of not business as usual anymore, right? The public is becoming more aware. We're wanting more accountability, transparency, and it seems like that we've all been asleep at the wheel while the machine just keeps going forward. So how are you going to handle transparency in this position?
Excellent question. And if I can go a roundabout way to answer it. Prior to the, how do I say this, the nepotism scandal?
Oh, yes, yes.
Prior to the lawsuit, prior to the resignation, I'm not sure I as a parent knew that there was a board.
Right.
That's embarrassing, right?
Well,
as a political scientist, I should be pretty embarrassed about this.
Right.
I challenge myself, at least. I want everyone to know my name. Mm-hmm. My phone number, my email address, what have you, to be able to connect with me.
Absolutely.
I can't do my job unless I am serving the needs of the people in my constituency. And despite the fact that, again, it's post 3, Chattanooga Valley, as well as the Flintstone area, it's a countywide vote. Right. What's good for one is good for all. So I would happily talk to any parent, any educator, any administrator, any taxpayer in general. Right. I want people to know my name.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, it's kind of what you said, we all care about education and we're all ready to kind of slam our fist down on the table. But if you don't even know who your school board is, how can you justify being mad? We must be involved. It must be a partnership, and that's what I think
Absolutely.
we're trying to change that. So
that's how I hope to increase transparency.
Good.
Or at least my accountability.
Good. Now, you have obviously finances. We talk about millage rates, taxes. So what is your experience in paying attention to finances, contributing to adopting a fiscally sound district budget, between the community as well?
Sure. So I, as a taxpayer myself, I'm very thankful that home prices have increased in value. This is what we hope for, so we knock on wood. But in turn, that has also increased our property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And from the time that we bought our house to today, again, this is almost a 6-year span, we've almost 2.5 times, if not 3 times, have tripled.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not a precise number there. Well, great from my husband's and my financial standpoint. Like, okay, we have a mortgage. It's going to be $100, $200 more a month. Okay, this is where we're going to budget from. That's fine. But what's the bigger picture?
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that this increase in budget coming to the county is going to be used wisely.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping that this money coming into the county is going to support our children. This is a very hard place to be because I, just like probably every other parent and taxpayer in Walker County, would love to pay the least amount of taxes possible. The promotion of the smaller government, I fully support this. But at the same time, I am paying. So I want my money to be going somewhere quality, somewhere where there's going to be a return on my investment. Yes, I'm saying my investment as a taxpayer.
Right.
In hindsight, if I was to take my X amount of $1,000 that I pay in property taxes and try to educate my son in the private sector with that amount of money, I can't. It's a failure to launch there.
Right.
But again, hopefully I am answering your question, and those that are listening.
Sure. The thing about property taxes, what I'm learning a little bit about this in other school districts and around the area, it's almost as if we're using it. I'm not going to use the word punishing, right? But when it comes to property taxes, raising property taxes on people that actually own stake in the community, it's very hard to do a 30%, 28% increase on people. When you look at the numbers and you look at the number of students in some of these school districts, and it's like, well, why are we doing this? It's outrageous. And I know it's combined with so many other things, but it seems like we're going to have to get to a point to where we're not putting that burden on property taxes. So. Absolutely.
And then you can also expand this to include, what about the seniors that are on a fixed income?
Exactly.
I mean, poverty is not just for parents. Poverty is across that are on fixed incomes that can't afford the 20 or 30%.
Right.
Again, I don't know enough about the homestead or the conservation pact to offer any advice, and obviously I'm not qualified to do so, but this is concerning. And I can imagine taxpayers are frustrated, going, I don't have kids. My kids are grown and gone. Why do I have to keep paying for schools? But this is the hard part of the way that makeup is made with regards to that formula for funding public education.
Right. We do have some legislation that will come on the ballot in November, SB 581, which is a homestead sort of freeze exemplary. We covered a show on this. Some people are saying it's very good. Some people are saying it's bad. But we'll move on to the next one. So let's see. What is your assessment of the current local salary supplement, including the pay scale for educational support personnel, such as bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodial, clerical, teacher assistants? So there's a little bit of a pay gap there between administration. And so what do you make of that?
It's clearly a deterrent. Why? Because we don't have bus drivers. We don't have custodial staff. We don't have cafeteria workers. No matter what school, no matter what education level, primary, secondary, or whatnot, that you pass by in our county, there is we need workers. We need bus drivers. We need these clerical positions. What's the incentive for someone that can make a higher dollar per hour or a higher salary working in the community
Right.
to then come and fulfill this need at this level? Well, that's all nice and dandy for me to say, yes, let's raise their pay, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
There's a budget. There's a finite amount. We can't go back to taxpayers and say, we need more in the coffers.
Right.
That's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece that we didn't talk about, not only the pay side of it, it's their benefits. Benefits increased.
Mm-hmm.
The cost that the state and the county has to pay with regards to benefits, I think increased 20 or 30%, which is phenomenally a huge portion of the fringe budget or with regards to their salary. There's clearly a gap, or otherwise we wouldn't have the opportunity, or we wouldn't have the for hire signs.
Gotcha. All right, we'll do one more question and then we'll close. What should a school board member expect from their superintendent?
Fantastic question. I hope continued cooperation, because I don't think that's necessarily an issue. Transparency and communication. I expect from any superintendent, again, as a parent, as a taxpayer, and hopefully a board member, is that they're going to continue with the overall objectives, run the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Collectively, I hope that the superintendent would also provide board members with information, communication, transparency, and accountability, because again, we are the ones elected to represent the best interests of the community.
Right.
So a very shortened answer for that one.
So you did bring something. We'd like
sure
to know
did.
What inspired you in the first place?
So in kindergarten, my then 5-year-old son, near President's Day, were learning about presidents. And they were tasked with creating a campaign poster, which I thought was such a cute little activity, again, for 5-year-olds. And I had to laminate it because it did tear. But my son created this. He does have, this is his campaign poster. At the top, it says Mikey for President. He's got his little American flag, very Abraham Lincoln with the hat at least. I appreciate the creativity and the size of his hands and whatnot. But this is something that I laminated and actually hang it in my office at the university. I am a political scientist, so stuff like this really excites me. Mm-hmm. But I want my son to dream.
Absolutely.
I want my son to have these lofty goals that he will hopefully be able to meet with my support, with his teacher support, with the community support.
Right.
So if today a child told me, Mom, or Dr. Groh, I want to be president, hell or high water, I'm going to make that happen.
Awesome.
Whether it's my child or your child, this is something that I think that I'm tasked with as an educator. Mm-hmm. I would be tasked with as a board member to make happen.
Okay.
So if you see my son in probably about 30 years running for president, please do support him. He'd have a very proud mom on your hands. But in any case, this is why. This is why I'm here.
Awesome.
And this is something
about the children. And well, of course, the schools and the teachers
absolutely.
And the children. But
absolutely.
All right. Well, you get final word.
Final word.
Tell our audience why they should vote for you.
I entered this race mostly because I wanted to win on merit. I didn't want to win because I had the more street signs, yard signs. I didn't want to win because people felt the need. Oh, I know her and I know her mom and her dad. I wanted to win on merit. And I have devoted my life to education. I consider myself a lifelong educator. I've mentioned I'm a university president, and more importantly, I'm a parent. I have also tasked myself with being active in my son's school, both as a volunteer. I sat on the school council. In addition, I saw a shortage in the need for substitutes, so I went out and became a certified substitute teacher, though I think certified is a stretch there. I became a substitute teacher simply for that reason. I also want to support overall students as well as that skill building. So I signed up to be a tutor with Time with Teacher through the Chattanooga Cherokee Regional Library, specifically in Chickamauga. I am committed to, again, our educating our children. And hopefully your child will hopefully one day also have a wonderful career goal in mind that we can help them reach. That's why I'm here.
Well, thank you, Rita. We'll post links to the video on how people can get in touch with you, and we appreciate
your time. I appreciate it.
All right.
Take care. Thank you.
Underground. Thank you.
The legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting booty.
He said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.